Welcome everyone to our webinar on automating data insights with decisions and ChatGPT. Just a little background to this. Today's use case, we're using some unstructured internal data, which is the basis for this use case. If you've got structured data in a database, there's plenty of other tools that you'd use to do reporting. You could do that from within decisions. You could use Power BI or any of the other BI tools. But what we're going to be showing you is how to take a bunch of unstructured data and using ChatGPT create automation such that we can repetitively run some analysis. And that's what Derek will be walking through with you today. So I'm Gordon Jones, and with me, my partner in crime is Derek Hippa. Hey, Derek.
Hey, all. Thanks, Gordon.
All right, a couple plugs before we get started. About 2 weeks back, we had one of our training events in Dallas. We have one coming up January 23rd through 25th. That'll be in Miami. So in the middle of the winter, if you're looking to get warm and learn about no-code rules engines, no-code software development, come join us down in Miami. Our new VP of marketing, Maria, lives down there, and I think I heard her say she was going to invite us all over, Derek. So that should be a good time.
Yeah, sounds good.
We have a couple of webinars coming up as well in December. We have the second part of a 2-part series on doing requirements discovery with decisions in ChatGPT. So if you saw the first half, highly recommend you catch this part 2. And then the following day, actually on a Friday, we have accelerate your use cases with a ticketing system built within decisions. And for a look at all of our upcoming events, both training events, webinars, you can go to our webpage, decisions.com/events to register for any of these. And in case you missed it, we have a whole, I think this is, number 8 or 9 in a series of webinars we've done on integrating and orchestrating large language models with decisions to build out automation. We've had a whole bunch of them. They're also on our website at decisions.com/videos. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see a big long list, along with a whole slew of other videos on how to learn how to use decisions. We also came out earlier this year with a white paper. We have another one scheduled for Q1 that we're busy working on as well, on all of the lessons learned over the last several months on building automations using these large language models. So by all means, hit our website. We have an AI landing page you can find in the solutions area, and you'll find the white paper there. So a little bit of housekeeping. If you have a question, just feel free to drop it in either the chat or the Q&A. We will either get to it as we see it, or for sure at the end of the webinar. Okay, and then the agenda for today, I'm going to do a brief 2 minutes for those of you who are not Decisions customers on what Decisions is, what we do, then go into a little bit of a few of the lessons learned with generative AI and where Decisions adds value to the whole process. Just a brief bit about where to find our open AI module within the Decisions platform. Then I'm going to turn it over to Derek, and he's going to walk through today's use case and the automation that he's built. So with that, I'll get started. Again, for those who are not Decisions customers, just a couple slides here on what Decisions is. We're a no-code rules engine, no-code software development platform. And there's three generic use cases that we get involved in regularly. But first and foremost is the rule engine and decisioning platform. And the whole idea here is to take business logic out of stored procedures, out of custom code, and put it in a graphical interface that can be easily understood by your subject matter experts, such that they can create rules, edit rules, maintain rules, or at a minimum, just look at the rules and understand what the business logic is. And we get involved in a lot of rule-heavy processes. You can think claims processing, both medical claims, insurance claims. We do a lot of work in the insurance industry. And in insurance, we also are part of some underwriting engines. So rules related to policies, whether you're accepted or not, what's the right policy given your background. And then generically, I would say loan origination is probably our single largest use case. So all of the rules related to loan approvals, for example. Beyond rules and decisioning, we also sit well beside these large transaction engines. In fact, the use case that you're going to see today, Derek's going to show you an integration with Salesforce. We have native integrations to most of what you see here. And we can sit off to the side, run complex business logic such that you don't have to, either these systems can't do it, or it's just easier to do it off to the side and keep your transaction systems as standardized as possible. We have clients that use us sitting off to the side of SAP, for example, handling customer-specific rules, logistics, pricing, packaging, you name it. We can handle a lot of complexity off to the side of your transaction system. And then taking that a step further, we do a lot of orchestration and automation between various services and applications. A lot of what you'll see here today, for example, even in our own Marcom stack on our website, we actually internally integrate about 17 or 18 different applications just within our sales and marketing stack. So a great tool for automating and putting business logic in between your other applications. But really, to get a flavor of what decisions can do, I'd highly recommend a demo. Just sign up online on our website, and one of our engineers would be happy to take you through the platform. All right, generative AI, we used to have more slides here. We've cut it down to one. I think it's been a year now. I think everyone knows pretty much what generative AI is all about. But I'll skip this slide. But what I really want to talk about is where decisions can add value into that process. So it's orchestrating and automating. What Derek will show you now, you could do a copy paste, right, with the data and accomplish the same thing. But what happens when you want to run it every day, every week, every month? And that's what decisions is all about, is setting up automations that make calls to these language models and can be used as part of a business process to create automation. And we've also learned through trial and error that oftentimes you need a lot of back and forth between the model. Sometimes you'll send it some information, it'll return something, and you're grabbing what it returns and sending it back to do something more. So we're fantastic at that, at orchestrating the back and forth between the model. We also provide an audit trail and governance. So if you want to ensure that you're capturing what's sent, what's returned, such that you have a complete audit trail. And that's super important for business processes where you need to prove or highlight what really happened and when. And we can provide all of that. Okay, the Open AI module within the Decisions platform is located with all of the other modules that you can find within the platform. So go to the features folder and you'll see it, and you can scroll through. We've got native integrations to all kinds of software applications, Salesforce, SAP, Jira, Kafka. You can see everything here and just click install the OpenAI module, and you can then do everything Derek will be showing you today. Okay, now on to today's use case, automating data insights. So here's one screen that will show you what Derek is going to be doing. We have a bunch of unstructured data sitting in Salesforce, and in our case, it's typed out information about what our customers are doing with Decisions platform. So it's text, sometimes it's a sentence, sometimes it's a whole paragraph, but it's not something that lends itself well to a very structured SQL type query analysis. If you've got well-structured data, you can use all the standard reporting and graphing tools. But what we're going to show you is how you can take this unstructured data, import it into, in this case, ChatGPT, and we are using one of the newest features launched just a couple of weeks ago after their user conference. They call them GPTs, or in our case, Derek, I think if you have the company, what is it called?
Assistant.
So they're calling it an assistant. But we're gonna grab data out of Salesforce automatically, load it up into the model, send it the prompt, orchestrate the prompt to run the analysis, to transform that, and then we're going to send off an email on a regular basis to people within the company to look and review this analysis. So if you have unstructured data sitting anywhere, this is a great tool to automate that process once you've got the analysis work. And this is an example of what it might look like. So it's really a typed out description of a use case that somebody's using it for Decisions. We as Decisions, we want to know what our customers are doing, and then we want to figure out, are there a lot of people doing the same thing or doing other things? So we have hundreds of these use cases. We have hundreds of customers, and I think we have in the thousands of use cases. So we've sent this to ChatGPT to do some analysis, and that's what we're about to show you. All right, with that, Derek, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
All right, very good. Appreciate it, Gordon. Let me share my screen. Can you see this okay, Gordon?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Well, yeah, just to kind of start back of what we're doing here. So again, these are the use cases that we have within our Salesforce environment. These use cases are just text, and there's a lot of meaning behind these. And what our goal here is to take all of these use cases within the system, again, pull them into Decisions, and then run it through ChatGPT to produce data insights for us. And again, these aren't labeled. Like if we were going to do this analysis, it would probably take us hours to kind of go through each and every single one and be able to label these accordingly. So we wanted to figure out a way we could do that without an unbiased decision. So, everyone would have a different meaning of what this description can mean. And really what the end goal is to take all this, gain insights that we could, use for our marketing team or even further information down the road. So
yeah, this is just to jump in here, Derek. For example, we categorize how our end users utilize Decisions into like workflow or rules engine, or they've built a product using the platform. But we also decided to give ChatGPT all of this data and to create its own categories based on what was typed up. And that's what you're about to see here.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of meaning behind this. And again, it's free text. So we wanted a way to create some analytics from it. So I'm actually going to jump to what the end goal of this is. So after kind of running all the analysis, this is what it produced. After this, I'll kind of just walk through this briefly, and then I'll go into our Decision Studio to show you how this was built and the prompts that we defined to produce this. But kind of started off, there was an email that was sent out, and it starts with a summary of what all this analytics is. We wanted the assistance API or ChatGPT to produce 6 separate charts. The first one was actually, well, actually stepping back for a second, we had a meaning of what our different categories are. And what that means is what we thought that most of our customers do. We took this data and gave it to ChatGPT and said, can you actually produce categories for us? And with that, it produced 6. Some of these, we knew about, like rules engine, request and approval workflow, but at the same time, we never really thought about separating it. So by doing these insights, we were able to kind of better understand our own data. So with that, we wanted, ChatGPT to actually create visualizations of different charts for us based on all that unstructured data. So the first one is actually breaking it up by account and use case. So you can see the separate categories on the bottom, and it's actually counting the number of accounts we have within this category, as well as the use cases. So you can kind of see the different visualizations there. You can really see how our customers are broke out and how they use our platform. The second piece, this is actually taking structured data from Salesforce and combining it with the unstructured data. So it's really powerful. It's, there's 2 different insights being able to be combined in one. We asked it to produce a heat map where it could actually count our customers by the industry as well as the category. So you can kind of see that darker label color is going to be where more of our customers sit. So this is insights that, we never really knew about. So being able to visualize it really effectively, there's a lot of information that we could use with this. Kind of going down, same thing, right? These are all kind of around the same basis, but they all have different meaning. We also wanted to break it out by annual revenue as well as that category. So category is also known as a cluster. So you can kind of see, based on the annual revenue of the company and the category where they actually sit as well. And then something else that's kind of meaningful, we wanted to build like a time series chart here, which visualizes when these use cases were created, also by that category. This can be very powerful to identify trends. You can start seeing if there's a new topic that's starting to be more and more used over time. There could be essentially a trend going on there. When you see high numbers like this in the beginning, most likely it's us backfilling the information.
Yeah, there was a big push to capture all this a couple of years back.
Yeah. So overall, very powerful. I mean, we asked ChatGPT to produce, a bunch of series of charts, and then once we started figuring out meaningful insights, we started to repeat that process, and I'll show you what that looks like in the prompt in just a second. Another chart that we asked was customer segmentation based on firmographics, so annual revenue, industry, country. So this is more visualization. There's not a ton of meaning right now behind this chart. You can kind of just represent like where everyone kind of sits. We could further fine tune this to produce better and more meaningful insights, but it's a great visualization. And then finally, the last chart we asked this ChatGPT to produce was actually show the use cases by account type. The account type represents, if it's a customer, former customer, a partner of ours. So we can kind of see where these use cases sit. And again, this is another heat map broken out by the category. So this would be a schedule that runs, once a month, where it would send these data insights. It's able to produce these pretty quickly and send this out. And again, there's a lot of information here that's very powerful that we could use, for many different use cases. And again, this is all around unstructured data with the combination of structured. So it's pretty cool. This job runs again once a month, and it produces great insights.
Yeah, and Derek, we had a question. Can you ask ChatGPT the type of visualization that you're looking to build?
You can, like what we did is, especially for the heat maps, we asked it to produce a heat map. We told it to do it by industry, by the category, as well as the total count. So there's definitely a lot of different things you could do. You could play around with it. I mean, before we actually put this into the workflow and put it in a schedule, there was a lot of, kind of going back and forth of what we wanted to see, how it was producing it. So there was a little bit of manual efforts into this, but yeah, absolutely. You could, ask it to produce histograms,
And
anything you
Derek will
like.
actually show you what the prompt looks like here in a few minutes.
Yep. All right, so I'm going to move on and I'm going to be moving into our decisions studio. So if you've never seen it, this is our platform. I'm in the designer view. So in here, we have our folder structure, which really contains separate projects. As you can see, I have an OpenAI folder. This is where a lot of the different webinar series we've done. You're able to create flows, rules, forms, reports, and integrations through this designer portal. So kind of just brief introduction to it. I'm actually going to jump over one more time and go into our workflow designer. All right, so this is our workflow designer. This is where all the magic happens. As you can see, we have a toolbox. These are all the different steps that you could use within decisions, and you can see the drag and drop interface. So you can just drag the step into the canvas, and it's very visual. So you can kind of see how everything's laid out and mapped. So we're actually going to run this live so you could actually see what it looks like and how it was able to produce those insights. But before I do that, quick intro. These are separate flows within a workflow, so it makes it really reusable. But we make that call to Salesforce to actually produce a CSV. We then send that to ChatGPT to produce those insights. But the first thing I want to show you is the
And
prompt.
Derek, there's a question I think that's relevant to this.
Okay.
The question was, does ChatGPT keep all the historical data and build from there, or does the duration of data need to be loaded each time?
So like what we're using here is the new feature called assistants. So you can create, like the way this kind of works is like you would create like an assistant bot where you give it specific instructions. So you could actually do that all through ChatGPT's website, and pretty much the instructions and any files that you have could be static that live there. So through this process, you can call it, but in our use case, we want fresh data. So every single time we run this, it's pushing fresh data directly to that bot. And then after it's completed, we actually delete it as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I guess the right answer there is it can work either way. You can have it send a file and then it has that file forever. In our case, we're gonna update that file. So we're gonna delete it and attach a new one to that assistant to run the analysis.
Absolutely. And all this information that we're passing to the bot, it's never trained, like ChatGPT never trains its data on what we're sending as well. And that's through the paid version. All right, so just taking a quick look at the prompt. So we have a variable where we actually define what that prompt looks like. So it's pretty large. It took a couple iterations to do it. But we first start off by like defining what the different categories are and how to kind of interpret that category. And the first step that we did is we actually passed the data to ChatGPT to determine these categories. So we actually took that, found something that we liked, and then we actually inputted it into this prompt. So you can see we're asking for 6 different categories, and we give a meaning behind or a description of each one, so that when this actually kicks off, it understands what to look for. So it's either by, keywords or the overall meaning of what's happening. The second piece to the prompt is where we're actually asking to create the visual charts. So in here, we're asking for 6 different charts. And you can see this is where I specify what fields to look at within. So first thing, I upload a CSV. So the CSV has field name. So I specify that. I ask it to produce, a visual chart. Sometimes I'll say a heat map. And I kind of just give a description. So after running this a couple of times, you do have to tweak the prompt to find where it works best. But after doing that, I mean, it's very consistent. It's repeatable. This thing's producing the same insights almost every single time. And that's where we would like to get. And then there's a time series chart, right? So you can kind of see the different iterations, heat maps, time series. So this goes kind of back to the question originally. If we could specify the charts, we can.
And Derek, there was also a question whether it could only look at historical data or could it forecast, let's say, 2 or 3 months into the future if the data,
Yeah, yeah,
fits that.
absolutely.
And the answer, yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah, this so the new assistant or GPT is very powerful. If you give it good data, it can produce great insights for you. So it's actually creating all the data analysis for you. It gives you meaning behind it. So overall, it's very powerful and it does it very quickly. Well, if I were to do it, it would be weeks. So, well, very cool. I'm actually going to jump over to another tab where I ran the process already. So we have a debugging option where you can actually see how the workflow runs live. So this actually was just ran a second ago, and we can walk step by step of how this was produced. So first, this is actually the visual of the debugger. So you can kind of see the path that this process took within the workflow. It's great for testing, making sure that everything's good. But really the first piece of it, oh, I may actually have to run it again. Let me run this. All right, so the very first piece of it is we're generating that CSV. So we're getting the use cases from Salesforce, and what it's going to do is actually output a file for us. So this file right here, the CSV file, was really all that information from Salesforce. We have the API called kickoff, and it outputted this file. So you can actually see the input and output per step.
Could you jump back, Derek, and walk through that flow to see what happens there?
Yeah. Here, let me actually do one thing really quick. I have it cached, so you weren't going to actually see the input.
All right.
But after I run this again, so what's happening in here is we're actually making API calls directly to Salesforce. So the first piece of it is fetching the use case. And then once it gets all those use cases, it loops through them, and then it gets additional details from that account. So we have these default steps, these Salesforce steps, where we're able to communicate with our Salesforce database. And essentially what we do is we pass in a query. So this is like, select all the information from our use case table, and then we format it into a JSON structure so it's known within decisions. So after, this whole overall process probably takes a couple minutes to do. One, we're making all those API calls to get the data. We then format it. So after it gets all the data from Salesforce, we're able to produce a CSV. So we have steps in decisions to do so. So we pass in the data, and then what it will do is actually output that CSV. The second piece of it is we're actually going to upload this directly to that assistant. So there's a couple steps to it. First, we upload the file to ChatGPT. Once it's been uploaded, then we could add it to the assistant. So all these new, like right now, our product team is kind of currently working on new steps for the new features that came out. This was released within the past couple of weeks, I believe in the beginning of November. So there's a lot of different new features here. So after the file has been uploaded, so again, it's fresh data. We always want to be relevant with our information. This is not really too much historical. These things are updated all the time. We then define the prompt, and then this is where we actually kind of kick off the process. So there's a couple steps that we have to do here. With the assistant, the first piece is creating a new thread. So if you were going to go to ChatGPT and start using the chat feature, this is like starting a brand new message thread. So once we create the new thread, we actually pass that prompt directly in, create the new message. We then run it. So once you upload all the information, you have to kick it off. So this is producing a lot of insights. So periodically you have to check the status of it to see if it's complete. And what we do here is we kind of just loop through until it's done. So we actually have a step in decisions where we could pause the flow. If we didn't have that, it would probably kick off like 200 API calls, which ideally you don't want to do. And then finally, so after we, create the prompt, send that to ChatGPT, it responds with messages. We're sending an email out. So what we need to do is actually format that response into something that's reliable to go into an email. And that's really what this last piece is, just
Hey,
formatting in
Derek,
a specific way.
couple questions here on data and privacy, which I think are important. I guess to begin, the data that we send, it's encrypted. It goes to a ChatGPT business account, which ChatGPT does not use the data in part of it in its modeling.
That is
So
correct.
with the business accounts, the data is not used in future modeling. They're also SOC 2 Type 2 compliant, as is decisions. So we have policies, encryption, and certification to ensure that we're keeping personnel data and information secure. And there was also a question over whether our data load was incremental or it was a complete delete and replace. And in our case, it's a complete delete and replace.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, with these new features of ChatGPT, I mean, this is kind of separate from their chat model as well. So really what this is, it's called a code interpreter. So essentially you're giving it data, it's interpreting it and then producing insights for you so that it's not actually trained on that information at all. If you have the free version and you're online, that's the information that it would do. We have a business account, we have a paid version. So everything is encrypted the way we would like it to be.
And there was a question, I'm not sure you know the answer, Derek, if ChatGPT can read structured data in a data frame format.
Yeah, it can. So it really depends. Like you have multiple ways that you could upload your data to ChatGPT. It accepts like CSV files, JSON lines, for example. It's kind of technical, but there's many different formats that you could actually upload. And then what it's doing on the back end is creating Python to visualize this. So it takes that information, will put it into a data frame. If it's already in a data frame, even better, it'll probably speed up the process slightly more. But it actually executes Python to visualize that. So all those reports you saw are all using Python libraries to produce these insights.
Another question, can we edit input data during the data processing, or would it need to start from the initial step?
I'm not sure. Like within decisions, you're able to, change parameters as it goes through the workflow. So, I mean, like a good example, within here, there are times that, it will miss like a chart for myself. I noticed this through testing. So I actually have a rule that identifies if it's missing a chart, and then I'll pass the information back into a new message that will continue what it was currently doing. So there are ways to manipulate the data in ways, or like if you identify trends, you could always send information back to ChatGPT. So it's like the multitasking. So yes, you can, but maybe a little more context in the question might be able to help me better
Yeah,
answer
and
it.
I think data manipulation is what we do well. So pulling data from Salesforce, some data, if you pull it from a source, you may want to do all kinds of things too, which is what we do regularly. And pre-process, you can do any kind of pre-processing within decisions before you're sending it to the large language model.
Yeah, absolutely. And a powerful thing about using decisions, Even like when you're defining prompts here, I'm going to step over for a second. We have the ability, it's called a merge plain text. So you could actually, pass variables in from your workflow. So it's dynamic. This gives you a lot of power to do that easily.
And Derek, there's also a question here about, let's say you have regional data. Can it separate between like Europe and North America, for example, and have the visualizations split in that way?
Yeah, absolutely. Something that you would most likely need to do is kind of define what that looks like within the prompt of what your end goal is. So if it's to, do analysis by country, you essentially just tell it what field to reference, and then it will be able to produce those insights for you. So, I mean, jumping back to the email where it produced, like we asked it to produce a heat map by industry and the category that it produced. So you can kind of see we specified that information. This could also be country, right? So we could almost flip the script a little bit and we could do it by country and actual information here. But it's able to produce great insights. Even like myself, I do data analysis work. Sometimes these things produce greater insights than I ever would. Right, Gordon?
On rare occasion, on rare occasion. But just to highlight again, I think the cool part of this analysis is that we started with very unstructured data. It was text that was just typed out, and ChatGPT did the categorization for us, and then the result is all of these charts that you see.
Yeah, it's very powerful. There's a lot of meaning behind those text fields, the unstructured data we had. We've always made assumptions there, but now we have something reliable that actually produces great insights for us that we're able to use and do more with.
Derek, now to set this up on an automation schedule, how would you do that within Decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. So here, I'm going to go back over to our studio. So within our studio, again, this is kind of like our folder tree with a bunch of different folders. There is a settings icon where you have the ability to create new scheduled jobs. It's very easy to do this as well. So in that example, we wanted that workflow to kick off once a month. So what I would do is come to the settings folder. We have a job and event, and then you could actually create a new scheduled job. So through here, it's really easy to set up. You just give it a name. So this would be use cases monthly, right? Might not be best practice to name this like this, but just for the example, you can kind of give a brief description of what's doing it, just in case you have multiple people in here. But you have the ability to pick a flow that's going to be kicked off on a schedule. Since we were just working on it, it's going to be under my recent. So I just click the workflow, I hit pick, and then now I have the ability to select how often I want this job to run. It could be a daily, monthly, you could do a time span, which runs, hourly, or you could even do like a weekly, yearly. But for this, we'll just do first day of the month. We specify when we want it to start. So today's the 30th. We would probably want this to kick off tomorrow. And I'll just set that to 0. All right, so once that's done, you could specify this to only run on business days. I know some people hate getting emails over the weekend, so we would say yes to that. And this would be the time that would actually kick off on that day. So when we come in at 9 a.m. Then all I do is hit save, and now this thing's active. We have a scheduled job, so super easy to kick off. And this is something that we can monitor over time, make tweaks. Typically with these large language models, you iterate on them as many times as you need to get them right, but super quick. So upon save, I have a new scheduled job that's ready to be kicked off. So very, very easy, very powerful. And if I was going to do this in writing code, it would take me weeks, months. So being able to orchestrate this quickly is very powerful.
So Derek, all of this to put this together and to send out the automation, how much time did you spend inside decisions getting this to work?
I I would say only a couple days. Um, we iterated a couple times on this to produce the insights we wanted, but to build the process end to end was anywhere for a couple hours to a couple days. So not much time at all.
Couple questions then, Derek. Can you fine tune the model, like with the accuracy, acceptance threshold, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so when you actually like we're using the assistant, which is one of the new features, you actually specify the model. So like say for example you had a fine-tuned model that you want to use, you just actually put that into this process when you're uploading the file and you're creating the thread. You specify the assistant and the assistant has the model tied to it. So yes, you have the ability to have fine-tuned models. You could have the brand new ChatGPT preview model. You could even have the 3.5 turbo. So you have a lot of customization that you could do with this new feature.
And Derek, there's a question about a limitation on the volume of data that can be fed.
So it's typically by file size is what I've learned. I think at the moment, again, this is a new feature, so I'm sure over time it's going to get better and better. I believe at the moment it's 512 megabytes. So in our example, we had thousands of use cases that we uploaded and there was no problem. So it's really based on the file size. CSVs are going to be heavier than a text file. So, it's really dependent on that, but you could almost split it up into iterations if need be. So if you pass this thing millions of lines of data, it most likely will not be able to compute it. You most likely will have to do that offline, but it still can handle a large amount of data.
Another question, Derek, about the categorization and how we could check the accuracy of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. You know, there's a couple different ways you could go about that. Like we tweaked with the prompt a little bit to determine how it does it. But for example, if we have this, like say there's a bunch of different use cases that were labeled data integration, we could actually send that information or have this produce an Excel sheet for us and have it labeled against the use case, and we could just go manually check it. That'll most likely be more of a manual iteration. And then if you notice a trend, you would just come back to the prompt and tweak it as necessary. And that's what we did. Uh, you know, it it would produce different insights based on how we provided the prompt. So it was a lot of going back and forth and just double checking its work until we got it into a place that we were happy with, and then it's consistent. So
Yeah, we also learned from experience, even having humans do the classification. Any two different people might classify things two different ways. So in a sense, we're trying to create a judge off to the side that does it. But some of these things, the way they're typed up, there's you could make a case for a couple different categories in this example.
yeah, we were really looking for more of an unbiased decision.
There's a question about like PII data and moving across borders and the legality of that and what I'll say here is, yeah, this example is kind of generic. If you have PII data and you're in Europe, for example, with GDPR, um, you would probably want to use a different language model that's within a walled garden. And we have some future webinars where we'll show the use of all of this just within a model that is local and doesn't leave your walled garden. All right, and there was a question about pricing and does somebody need a ChatGPT license, or would Decisions manage this? And that's a great question, because beginning next year, we will have both options. So you can always use the Decisions platform and set up accounts yourself. However, moving into next year, we have a relationship with OpenAI, and we're going to provide a cost-effective means for our customers to just not have to think or deal with that, and let Decisions manage all of the calls and the cost associated with that. Let's see. I think.
Yeah,
I think
someone did ask about the ChatGPT released versions, kind of saying that, you know, the original model 3.5 wasn't the greatest. ChatGPT did just release a new model. It's ChatGPT 4, you know, -1106 preview. So with this analysis that we did, we actually used the most recent model. So we have noticed that with the newer one that was just released a couple weeks ago, it produces a lot better insights than the previous ones, and it's more relevant. I think it was trained on up to data on like April of this year. So you have options there with using Decisions and ChatGPT.
And again, I think just to kind of summarize what we've shown you here, if you have the data and you're doing a one-time analysis, you know, you can for sure do all this through the portal, through the web page with ChatGPT. But once you've got the analysis work and you want to do it on a repetitive basis, you know, Decisions is a great platform, as you saw the flows, to build out the automation, to do this, set up a scheduled job, and then just run it as we are. And we have a number of other webinars where we're using a lot of unstructured data with meeting transcripts and running those, you know, when the meetings get completed and the transcripts are finalized. So we're building in a lot of automation internally, using Decisions to orchestrate and automate this kind of analysis work. So if you're an existing customer and you'd like to talk to us about, you know, the unstructured data that you have and the type of analysis you might want to do, please reach out, sales@decisions.com. If you're not a Decisions customer, we'd love to have you on board. And the best place to start your journey is with a demo of the product. So you can sign up right from our webpage, upper right corner. You can book a demo, and one of our engineers will take you through on your own journey through the product and answer any questions you might have. All right, I think we'll call it a wrap. Thanks, Derek, and again, we look forward to seeing you next time. Talk to you then. Thanks, everybody.